Okay, so as we continue our accounts payable training, what we're going to talk about now is we're going to kind of skip ahead because I want to show you the reports. Each module has a report section in it. You can get a vendor listing, you can get a bank code listing terms, check listing, that's all the checks that you've written, invoice due report or invoice payables report. You can reprint any history you want or check summary. So what I wanted to show you is, since we entered all of those invoices, I want to show you what an aged payables report looks like. The nice thing is you can do an as of date, which means that if you needed the payables as of January 2nd, 2004, you can change it to that and it would automatically give you just those payables. Down here it's telling me, do I want standard invoices only excluding prepayments, which we'd always want, or do I want to reconcile my prepayments only, or do I want to see both, which would be my net payable? I personally like just standard because I like to be able to know about what money I need to put out. So when I click on that, hit the screen, I can do it sorted by vendor, I can do it by vendor number, I can do a summary, or I can do a detail, and I'm going to do a detail. And this gives me instantly all of the invoices that I have in the system and what my total payables is at this moment. If I had pages and pages, these are called hyperlinks. So if I needed to just jump right to Jeff Lyken's expense, I would be able to do that and it would jump me right to that page so I could look it up. Any questions on the payables or the reports?
No.
Okay, so with that I'm going to go ahead and close. Reports are pretty self-explanatory. They just simply are there. So now we're going to go into check processing. Check processing can be done in three ways. One can be manual checks. Two can be an approved to pay process where it actually gives you a list of all the payables and then you identify which ones you're going to pay. Or three is the automatic check selection. Automatic check selection means that it's going to automatically go out and say, based on today's date, this is what you have to pay, here's the list, and it generates the checks. You're a pretty small company, so I doubt that's what you would be doing. Because we have these checks already in the system, we've already manually written checks, we want the system to, we're going to do a manual check so that our bank reconciliation will match. So I'm going to go to check entry. If I were to do check approval, by the way, this is what would come up. It would show me, and I'm going to open this up a little bit, it would show me all the invoices that are outstanding. If, for instance, I made a mistake and I wanted to void this invoice, I would click this column right here and it would automatically void this invoice. Okay? Any questions?
No.
Okay. If, for instance, I was going to pay this invoice, but I wasn't going to pay the whole amount, I could click here and say I'm only going to pay $3,000. It would automatically leave the balance. Okay? That's an automatic payment. If I wanted to pay all, I would simply click here and it would pay all of them. You gotta have a lot of money in the bank for that. And I'm going to clear all the approvals. Okay? Because we're not going to do anything with this. Okay, so now we're going to do a manual check. Okay, in check processing, I have two ways of doing a manual check. A manual check is if I've already written it, I just simply put it in there and nothing will print. But if I needed to cut a quick check, I could go in here, enter my vendor, let's say it's going to be UPS. It's going to say, what transaction number is this? This is the first transaction for this vendor in this session. So you're going to see the transaction number, the entry number, repeat itself. If I have two transactions for UPS, for instance, I didn't want this all on one check. I wanted separate checks. I would have to say this is transaction number 1, transaction number 2, transaction number 3, and I have to keep track of that. The system doesn't automatically increment. Okay? So I'm going to say yes to this. Here's where I would say, is this a standard check, which means that it's going to get printed? Is this a manual check or an auto check. I'm going to do a manual check for this one. And then I'm going to choose the bank it's going to come out of, which we only have one. Then I'm going to fill in the check number. So I'm going to say it's check number 1003, and it was dated 06/06/08/05.
Yes.
And then when I come down here, I'm going to hit F3. Now, at this point, if I did not have the invoice in the system, I would change this to a general ledger type account and assign it to the right general ledger account. But I think I have this one in the system. I do not have this one in the system.
No, because that's USPS.
Oh, well, because I made a mistake. Here's a UPS. We have this one, and we don't have the other one. So, never mind, I have a different one here. I'm going to cancel out of this. I'm going to change this check number to 1015, and then look up the invoice I'm paying, which is this one. I'm going to just check mark it and hit select. Now, if I was going to pay both of these, I could hit toggle, and it would check mark both of them and bring them into the system, but I'm not checking this one. It automatically then brings my total up here to the top. $279.60. Okay? So I'm going to hit clear and save. And then I have an invoice here, a check that I wrote to Raj India Trading. What does that mean? So we don't have a vendor for that. What was it for? That was your opening balance.
That was my payment for the company, my cash portion.
Okay. So I'm going to create a new vendor, and I'm just going to call it Raj, because you're not going to be writing any checks to them anymore, I don't think.
Not the Raj India Trading
Right.
Corporation.
Okay, this is the first transaction. We're going to say yes, vendor not found. This is a manual check. It came out of check number 00, and it was check number 1001. It was done on 05/30/08. And then in here, I'm going to put F3. Now, we don't have an invoice for this. This is a general ledger transaction. So I'm going to change this to an account type. Hit enter, and now I'm going to assign it to the right general ledger account. Now we know that this is your paid in equity, right? So we're going to go down here to the 2s. I think it was a 3 actually. The 3s. Paid in capital, right? So we hit select. And this is BB, and I'll just put the date, 05/30/08. It has to have a reference. And the total amount was $235,123. Did I do that right? Yep. No too many zeros there? Okay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Okay, and then we have bank fees. So the next one, I'm going to hit clear, save, and I'm going to set up Cascade Bank as vendor. And because it's easy for me to remember Cascade, if I have to write it, I can write the word Cascade as their item, as their vendor number, or I can have the system assign an actual number. So it's up to you, but I'm just going to do this. Cascade Bank. And save it. The reason I'm entering these is because I want to show you what a bank reconciliation looks like also. That's as part of the training. Okay? Am I boring you?
No?
Okay.
Watching.
Manual, 00. Now, why did we write a check for this amount?
Closing costs.
This is
Bank fees and loan fees.
bank fees, and it's not really bank fees, it's really loan fees, isn't it? And so,
Closing.
closing costs tax deductible. So if it's a closing, it's,
Yeah, it was closing. It was
well, we'll put it, right now, we'll decide on how we're gonna do that. This is, this came directly out of the account. It didn't, there's no check number for this, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna put W to indicate that it was a wire coming out, and the date of it is 053008, and the date 053008. F3, and again, this is a general ledger account because we don't have an invoice. And the account number that we're going to assign this to is going to be, I'm going to say it's going to be, it's not the same as an interest expense, right?
No.
Okay. I didn't see bank fees in there, did you? Bank and credit card charges. I'm going to do a new account.
I thought I saw bank fees in there once before.
I don't think it's in there. No, it's not. This is a very minimal
Okay.
one. I'll just put it here for right now. And we're going to redo our general ledger tonight, okay? Before we put any postings in. You and I will work on that from your house. Okay, so again, this is a W 053008, and the amount was 8640.20. Okay? Getting the idea? So when we're done, we're going to go ahead and exit. Yes. Save. And even though it's a manual check, it still has to go through the process of printing it to the system. So we're going to say to the screen, nothing will print because it was a manual check, and now it's going to go into the posting. Now, one thing you want to make sure of, before you say yes to posting a check, make sure that it's correct, because you cannot reprint a check once it's posted. You have to void it out. Notice we have some checks in here. That's our next lesson.
Yeah.
Screen. Post it, update, and done. So now, if I were to go to inquiries and look up Raj, I now see that I did a beginning transfer to this account for this amount. So in addition to that, that should show up on my general ledger. So if we go to our general ledger now, and we run a financial report of our balance sheet, which tells 2008, 6, balance sheet, screen, year to date, next, 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 finish. We should see that transaction on the second page. Oops, first page. It's on the bottom of the first page. And there we have it. And our cash in bank should be substantially negative. Which it is. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Because when we do the actual deposit here, that's going to go to paid in equity also, paid in equity, or that's the note payable. Sorry, that's our notes payable, I think, right? Isn't that our notes payable?
No, the 167,000's paid in equity,
Okay, and that's going to offset the 235. Yeah, along with this.
and then the 75,000's the notes payable.
Right? And the 900 is the notes payable.
No, 900 is,
Notes payable. The
Equity.
company owes you the money,
yeah,
unless you're doing it as paid in capital.
it's going to be paid in capital. Right?
Should it be a note?
I think that's a note payable.
Okay.
I would think that's a notes payable.
Okay.
Okay, so you getting the idea of how it's working?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to cancel out of this. Okay, oh, we made a mistake on that check. No good. We need to void the check. So we're going to go back over here to accounts payable. and check processing, check entry, and we're going to void the check for Raj India Trading. RAJ, first transaction. So when I hit this to go to void, I'm going to put in the check number, which was 1001. Now this is very, very important to read this next question that pops up. The question is, do you want the check to void the check and reverse the invoice? That means just reverse journal, or and we say yes to that, or do you want to void the check, reverse, and reopen the invoice? Now what that does, that puts it back onto the accounts payable. Now we don't have an accounts payable for this, so in this case we want to just say yes. Okay? Does that make sense? You have a furrowed forehead.
Reread the sentence.
The sentence is, do you want to void the check and reverse the invoice? Select yes to void the check and reverse the invoice, or no to void the check and reopen the invoice. In other words, it won't put it back onto the accounts payable. Okay, so we're going to say yes. And it automatically reverses it. Close it out. Post it. Again, it's going to go through the same process of trying to print a check to the screen. Yes to update screen. And we're done. So now if we go to the inquiry on Raj, you'll see where we we did the 235 up here, we paid it and we voided it. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's how it works. Okay, any questions on check processing?
No.
That's really all that there is to do with accounts payable.
Okay.
I think we're going to go ahead and close off accounts payable. F9.